Hello friends, welcome back to another vlog. Life's been full lately. Sorry I haven't been able to make as many videos lately, but I have some exciting news. Just this past weekend I completely finished my EMR, emergency medical responder training, and so I passed the testing for it, and yeah, it feels really good to finish that, and hopefully I'll have a little bit more time as I figure out what this next chapter and next season in life looks like now, because for the first time since the beginning of the year, I'm not in classroom. And yeah, that's pretty exciting. Things have just been moving along, and it's been stretching me and growing me, but I'm so grateful. I really ended up enjoying the EMR class and learning that more than I expected. Just learning about medicine, learning about the human body, learning about it from from the medical system. I enjoyed it more than I ever expected, actually, and I think I'm going to continue. So EMR is the first level of a emergency medical system, and so level 2 would be an EMT, and EMT school starts in the fall for me where I'm at, and I think I'm going to do it, assuming it all works out and aligns and that sort of thing. I think I'm going to continue to learn more and just go deeper with it because I enjoyed it, and yeah, I really am working on becoming the best first responder I can possibly be. It's not been easy, but it's been a good journey as I have been stepping into all of this. And so this leads me into my topic for today. I want to talk about medicine and the practice of medicine, because I feel like I have been pulled in, fallen in, led into this journey with medicine that I never really expected. And it feels deep, and I have only just begun, and maybe this is a full-on the journey of medicine and the practice of medicine. Maybe that's a lifelong journey and a lifelong practice. And I'd never really thought about it much before. Like I've thought about medicine and the concept of medicine and the topics that surround it, health and healing. I've considered them a lot. They're very major things I've considered, and I hope to share a whole bunch over the future of this journey. And so, but this practice of medicine, I have so much to learn, and we're just at the beginning, but I really want to practice it in the way that aligns with my heart. And so hopefully over the course of vlogging and walking out this journey, I can discover more and more what that means. And so as I consider the medicine and the practice of medicine and this new journey into medicine, first place I'd like to start talking about is the story of my own journey through the medical system. And yeah, that really begins when I was 16 years old. I was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma cancer. And it was crazy and shocking. I've always been healthy. So as a kid, I never really, I was healthy and never really had any major issues. And since that time of cancer, it's been the same. I have not had to deal with that much, and haven't really ever had to go to the doctor or had to deal with um, the medical system that much. But during that time when I was a teenager at 16, and this cancer came out of nowhere, it was extremely aggressive. Even like being able to like see it happen to like overnight, and as soon as it was confirmed that it was cancer, they literally started treatment the very next day because of how aggressive it was. And so because of that aggressive cancer, the response was an extremely aggressive chemo treatment. That was the path. There had actually just been a long-term study that talked about cancers related to what I'd had and the best way to treat it for youth. And so there was a plan that had like quite a bit of over a decade of study. And so they were very optimistic that it was going to work. And I remember it was sort of this situation where if we did this treatment, chemotherapy-based treatment, I had to give you this, what was it? Something like 87, 89% chance of survival, which those are great odds. I was happy to take those odds. But then on the other side, it was like a generation ago, people would have died from what I had before they had the modern treatment that they used for me, which, yeah, it's and so that's what I did. I did this chemo that's very intense, and I had to drop out of school to even have enough time to be at the hospital, and my everything like physically just tanked. I was hardly able to walk, or like not walk, like walking around the block was sort of like kind of where my limit was at, and I was just so sick and weak and disabled, and it was really hard. But it was less than 6 months of treatment, and every step of the way, every phase of treatment, the results were about as good as they could have hoped for. And so at the end of it, after less than 6 months of treatment, I'd finished and I was cancer-free, and I was able to go back into regular life. And I really made it an effort after that. I really wanted to feel healthy again, so I started doing a lot of working out and running, and that's when I started climbing mountains and like 14ers, and just really made an effort of, wow, once I was able to start being physical again, I really wanted to, be as healthy as I could possibly be. And because things had changed, I wasn't able to play sports in the same way, and there were my body was different coming out of it than it was going in. But anyway, that experience is just such crazy, and also feels like a deep and insightful insight into medicine, as essentially this disease that is trying to kill me is fought off, is combated, is treated by poison in the proper dose, in the proper way, but also a poison that some people, if they would have had what I had, would have literally died from just the treatment. And this cancer that is improper growth is then treated by something that kills growth, especially fast growth, which is why hair falls out and blood counts need to be closely monitored and all that sort of thing. And so as I kept going in life, there was a lot of phases. I had this interesting oscillation over the course of my own spiritual journey, and this is something I think medicine and God and spirit are also intertwined, which is not explicit in, let's say, the study of Western medicine. It would be like an afterthought for the system, not for all individual practitioners. But at one point, really just praising God for saving my life through this medical technology that one generation ago didn't exist, and according to what we know, I would have died if they hadn't had the treatment that they'd had. But years later, also, as I was going through my own spiritual journey, at a time when I considered myself like more of an atheist, even, I looked back on that time and I saw that science had cured me, and technology, and that is what actually saved my life. And it was the human's ability to be rational and scientific and inventing cures, and Western medicine is what saved my life. So there was a phase of that as well. And then later on beyond that, as I really came back into, by the grace of God, reclaiming, rediscovering and my faith, and really making it my own. Also becoming, on the other side, skeptical of Western medicine and skeptical of all of these drugs and these treatments and all this technology that we use on the body, and skeptical of the religion behind Western medicine. And by religion, I mean the philosophy behind it. Everything in reality has a quote unquote a religion behind it. I could say a philosophy, but it's like the deepest things that is informing that which arise out of. And so philosophy would break these things into categories of like every system, every belief, every ideology, every philosophy, everything has deeper underlying structures that deal in the realm of religion. We could also say from philosophy, deal in the realm of epistemology. What do we know? How do we know it? And how certain are we? Deal in the realm of ontology, and the nature of beings, and the nature of relationship, and the nature of how things are ordered and categorized, and the nature of metaphysics, which would be just first principles and what reality is and how it's structured. So everything has these qualities, philosophical underpinnings that are beyond science, that are beyond data, that are beyond research. These things are deep. These things are just deep philosophical things that inform everything. So Western medicine has its own ontology, has its own metaphysics, it has its own epistemology, and which all that together is sort of like it has its own religion. And after being through it and being on both sides of the polarity of that, I became skeptical of how Western medicine, I would say it has a very limited framework. So anything related to spirit or God or miracles is, left. It can't. Western medicine cannot explain it, handle it. It just those things that are beyond it. It just kind of doesn't deal with, and that's fine. And it also makes it small. The it's not the it doesn't have the full picture, and so I think that manifests in a lot of Western medicine, making people feel disembodied, by that making people feel like numbers or like a problem to be solved or like a machine to be repaired. And it does not feel whole. It does not feel loving necessarily. The system feels very horrific very often. And a lot of the individuals in the system who are really trying to make a difference are really having to struggle with the constraints that the system puts on them. And I've had experiences like that after I became skeptical of the medical system, which related to wanting to put the question of medicine more into the hands of God and more into the hands of spirituality and more into the hands of the realm of, let's say, what we could call religion and spirituality, and losing trust in the medical system. Yeah, that would be the other side of the polarity of then also at a time when I saw that my cancer, I ended up saw it as being, there was a time in my life where I saw I was healed by that system. And that's the system that saved me. It wasn't God or spirituality or religion. And so, yeah. So yeah, I've really experienced both sides of it. And I've tried to integrate that over the years. I've explored medical clinics that have more holistic perspectives of things. For instance, there's something called functional medicine, which is trying to unify the more, trying to make, like, how do I describe it? Using the science and using the data that we have, but also looking beyond it into what's healthy for the whole human, body, emotions, mind, spirit, looking at a more holistic framework. And that is what I'm looking for. But even in the places that have claimed to have that, I've felt disappointed because I still end up feeling disconnected. I still end up finding like being treated like a number or being treated like something to be solved and to have scans and blood work and have all these things analyzed and then figure out what kind of drugs or supplements or foods or kind of things to take. None of that is wrong in and of itself, but it can so often feel like being treated like a machine to be fixed. And I fundamentally don't believe that. And so I am continuing to seek and explore and learn and just open up to the path before me with medicine. I am grateful to be learning from the Western medical system because there has a lot of fruit. Western medicine, you cannot deny ability to keep people alive and allow people to recover from things that for all of the past human history people would have died from. So emergency medicine and trauma medicine, like trauma care, those sorts of things. Even infections, like antibiotics, have saved a lot of people. So there's a serious fruit there, and I would like to learn from that. And I would also like to I'm also on my own path of what is my practice of medicine. And I want to incorporate um, other traditions. People have been practicing medicine long before science and enlightenment thinking have been a thing. And so more indigenous medicine people and shamans have been working with medicine, which their own perspective, which could be herbs, which could be rituals and all sorts of techniques. And there's the other big alternative system is the system of traditional Chinese medicine, and I feel really interested in learning more about that. And Tai Chi practice that I do, the movement practice that I do, is very intertwined with traditional Chinese medicine, and they have entirely different ways of perceiving than Western medicine does. And I'm interested in learning from that too, and learning from my own experience of the things I've picked up along the way. And yeah, I'll talk more about. So I'll talk a little bit about, just as a little note, for example, um, checking someone's pulse is an important part of emergency medicine. And in traditional Chinese medicine, feeling someone's pulse, you can actually get huge amounts of information from it, much deeper than just the act of feeling for a pulse and feeling what the pulse is and its rate and how strong it is. There's all sorts of these other qualities that you can learn from someone's pulse. I feel fascinated by, and I'd like to incorporate that and get better at that. Because either way, every person that I'm working with, I'm going to be checking their pulse. And so that's just a small example of traditional Chinese medicine has things to learn from it, I know. And I've learned a lot about the body and a lot about what I consider aspects of medicine and aspects of healing from Tai Chi. And and just medicine in the deep symbolic and philosophical perspective is really where I'm contemplating, just to ground it in with my story and how I kind of articulated it. Is medicine can be this process of using poison to keep away disease. And so if you think of medicine we think of it as a positive thing. It's almost like medicine and poison can be two sides of the same coin. It's very dualistic and very polarized, and it's sort of like using death to keep away death is a symbolic perspective of medicine that I'm thinking about. And yeah, even in traditional Chinese, like in martial arts, so Eastern martial arts, which I've done a lot with, they often say the best martial artists can be great healers, and great doctors, and great doctors can also do tremendous harm. And that is because of this polarity again, this duality of, if you're a martial artist, you know how to damage somebody, you also know how it's supposed to work properly. On the other side, if you know how things are supposed to work properly, that can be changed into doing damage. So like the martial arts and medicine polarity, it's like Eastern martial artists often learn about acupuncture points and all these points to do damage on, but there are also the same points where healing is also done in that traditional system. So the polarity of medicine is fascinating to me, which leads me into my final part of my contemplation of this. To me, what medicine truly is, which I don't know what this is intellectually, but this is symbolic, that in the Bible, in the Torah, when the Israelites are in the desert, they are at one point, I think it's in Numbers, they are plagued by serpents. They start getting tormented by these serpents out in the wilderness. And Moses asks God what to do about it. And God tells Moses to make a bronze serpent and raise it up on a pole and then whoever gazes at it will no longer be tormented by the actual serpents, by gazing upon this bronze serpent that's been lifted up. And I probably need to read and study that story again. But for whatever reason, to me, it's really windy. That story to me represents medicine. And it's interesting, even the symbol for emergency medical services for the EMS system, so on ambulances and all sorts of stuff, is called the Star of Life, which is the 6-pointed star that in the center of it has a rod with a snake wrapped around it. And the snakes are always so intertwined with medicine. And they're back to, so that's back to the duality of medicine. And even if you get bit by a snake, a venomous snake, the antivenom is made from the venom. And it's like, there it is. So it's just the life and the medicine rides in the polarity of life and death. And the story of Moses, to me, really is pointing at what true medicine actually is, which true medicine is not just a technology. It's not drugs. It's not surgeries or techniques or procedures. That it's not prescriptions. And true medicine, I would say, heals on all levels. True medicine heals the body, it heals the heart, it heals emotional, mental things. Our world today is so plagued by mental and emotional disorders and issues, and it heals the spirit. I think that's what Western medicine considers out of its scope, is the deeper layers of beyond just the body, beyond just getting rid of disease. Because oftentimes I believe disease is caused by deeper things, emotional things, mental things, even spiritual things. And to finalize with the serpent being raised up in the wilderness, my final little act of contemplation would be talking about Christ himself saying, as Moses lifted up the serpent, so too must he be lifted up. And to me, that points at the image of Christ on the cross is something like the ultimate medicine. And this is just a meditation and a contemplation because I don't fully know what that means. That just feels like the truth of at the symbolic and spiritual and metaphysical and these levels that I feel fascinated in the contemplation of. So thank you for listening to me explore this journey of medicine. It's yet another long-term thing. There's this will be probably a lifelong thing, and so I'm at the very beginning, but I hope to continue to share. I will continue to share my journey and share thoughts. And thank you for whoever's here. Thank you for listening. These vlogs are a really good way for me to begin to try to articulate things that are swimming through my psyche. And yeah, I thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you all soon. Have a wonderful day.